Why wouldn't it be? All right, guys, we are here this afternoon to continue working on delivering an excellent customer experience. And we're going to be working on surveying our clients, including getting surveys and testimonials at the end of the transaction. So as we are getting people in from the waiting room and everything else today, we'll get started in just a moment. All right, let's start diving in. So we are talking about the survey step, which is the third step in the 5-step customer experience system to create. The first is to set those expectations when you're working with buyers or sellers, help them know what it's going to look like when they're working with you, serve how to actually meet those expectations and deliver an excellent experience. Today, we're going to work on survey, and then the idea is to surpass their expectations and sustain that relationship to gain repeat and referral business. So let's talk specifically about this survey step in the process. So as we're working with our buyers and sellers, just like serving their needs happens the entire time we're in the transaction, so does the survey, right? So, so often we think about customer experience survey as something that happens after we're done. And the downside to having a survey that only happens after we've closed is we don't have a chance to impact those results any longer, right? If there's a missed expectation or a way for us to improve in the way we're serving our client, we just simply don't know about it and don't have the opportunity to do it. So to really appropriately survey the client as we're working with them, we want to check in frequently. Right? We're going to do this different ways. We're going to simply ask for feedback. We can use surveys, either, from a company like SurveyMonkey or something that we send ourselves. We're going to ask them for reviews and for testimonials, and we'll cover some best practices in those to really become an expert at delivering a phenomenal customer experience. We want to track our customer experience score, right? So we want to be able to have a standard that we're measuring, and that we're aiming to meet a minimum level of service or exceed that level of service every time. So we're going to track our score, and then obviously we need to make improvements when and where necessary. So we're gonna tackle all of those pieces here today. And so the first piece I want to talk about is setting the stage to check in frequently, because we don't naturally do this, right? If we're going through the real estate transaction by default, which is how most of us do this, by the way, we typically don't stop after inspection and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, how's your experience been working with me so far? Right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank the communication that you've received and the service you've provided? And what are 3 things you think I could do to improve the experience, right? We're not naturally stopping and asking those questions along the way. And if we start at the beginning, setting the expectations, if we set our clients up so that they, so that they're expecting us to do that, then we're going to be in much better shape as we're going through. So one of the best ways to set that expectation is to begin in the consultation, right? Your buyer consultation or your seller's consultation. Let the client know that you're going to be reaching out and asking for feedback, right? And also at the same time, give them some motivation to do that, right? Mike Hicks, who's a mega agent here with Keller Williams, has a really great way of doing this, and he sets the stage. And so I want to show you kind of what that conversation looks like and how he sets that stage. And while we're watching this video, have your pen and paper out, take some notes, and share with me 2 or 3 specific things that you're hearing in the video that might be different than a default conversation, right? What has he really planned to say inside of this script, and what do you think the outcome would be?
Everybody in our group cares about what it is that you need and what it is that you want.
And can you guys hear that okay?
Everything about what we do is focused on just creating this experience for you.
We can't hear anything, Anna.
I can't imagine being better.
Nope.
Okay, let's try again. Thanks for that. Let's try that.
Everybody in our group cares about what it is that you need.
Better.
You want. And our systems, everything about what we do is focused on just creating this experience for you that you honestly can't imagine being better. That we're just out in front of everything. We stop the surprises. We just keep it as good as it can be. Now, there's going to be challenges. We know there will be. It's real estate and it's people. But we're just focused on you, to a person, to our group. And so that's what we're focused on, that 10 plus experience, if you want to call it that. Does that sound okay?
I would love that.
Okay, great. So through this, there's something I want.
I knew this was coming, Mike.
So there really is. There's something that on our end that we want. And so just to say it, sometime from right now until the day we close for you, that you'll feel so great about the things that we're doing for you, and that we're delivering on our promise, because this is my promise to you that we're going to deliver that experience. And if we're delivering on that promise, that you'll call me with the name of somebody that needs help in real estate. They might just have a general question. They might need refinance. They might need to buy. They might need to sell. They just need help with real estate. Now, I know you'll probably give my name out. I hope you will, which is great. But I need you to do the next step. I need you to call me with their information, because then there's a 100% chance I'll get in touch with them. Can you do that?
I'd be happy to do that for you.
Okay, that'd be great. So, but we're really going to deliver that, and I appreciate that. So you'll call, but you'll call, right? You won't
Right.
just get-
I'll call you with their name.
Okay, well, that'd be perfect. So listen, if we get to the date of closing, so we're sitting at the closing table and we're sitting there, and you haven't called me, I'm going to assume that our group and that we didn't deliver on the promise, and I want to talk to you about it to find out what we could have done differently in order to change that. That be okay with you?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. Well, listen, Nikki, I'm going to count on it. Okay, I'm going to count on you calling.
You bet. I'm going to call
Okay.
you.
Great. Okay.
Thanks.
Yes.
I love that so much. Give me some feedback. What did you hear in there? What really stood out in that Mike Hicks script?
I like that he had said that there's going to be challenges, in the transaction, kind of just setting the tone too, because we all know real estate can be a rocky road from the start to the finish, So I thought that was appropriate that he'd mentioned that.
Absolutely. And he's setting that expectation ahead of time, right? Like this is people and this is real estate. And so 100% of the time, it's not going to go smooth. Right. And we know there's going to be challenges, and that's why you've hired me. Right. So that's awesome. And that's the type of expectation setting that really helps that buyer or seller reflect on that when you're going through that challenging period. Right. Oh man, Mike told me that there might be some challenges. Right. As opposed to, oh, Mike said this was going to be so smooth, I could do it in my sleep. And here we are, we have challenges, right? So I love that. Great feedback there. One of my favorite pieces about this is he reaffirmed many times, right? He said, I know you're going to give my name and number out, but will you call me? You'll call me, right? And he used very specific language to make sure that he was redirecting that activity from someone giving out his business card, which we know how that ends up, right? To his client actually calling him with that referral. Yeah. What else did we hear there? I think one of the other pieces that I take away from this is, he really sets the stage that if we get to the closing table and you haven't called me yet, I'm going to assume we did not deliver on the promise. Right. And so I'm going to ask what we did differently. And, I don't know that he specifically said it in this one, because this is a shorter snippet of the clip, but in different versions of this, you'll hear him say, and we're going to check in throughout the transaction to make sure that we're on track. And when you hear from so-and-so on my team, she's going to ask you if we're delivering on our promise. Right. And if you haven't called us yet with the name and number of somebody who has a real estate need or a real estate question, then we're going to assume we're not delivering on that promise. So you can let my assistant know when she calls to check in. Right. So there's some ways to be able to set that expectation there. And then, you can take this a step further. And so I pulled this next piece too as a kind of redundant example of a different way to do this, right? So this next group, oh, sorry, Mike. No, go ahead and, there we go. This next group uses this same structure, And they also do this in their print marketing, right? So it goes inside of their buyer presentation and seller presentation to really set the stage. And so I think this is really powerful. So I'm going to show you guys what this looks like too.
So the first form I want to talk about is the promise leave behind. And what this is a form you will print out prior to your listing appointment and bring this with you so you can leave it with the sellers that we're meeting with. This is a promise to the clients that choose to work with us of the experience that we are going to give them. So there's 3 parts to this. Part 1 is the promise that says that we are going to ensure an A+ real estate experience, one that they can't imagine to be any better. We're going to work hard to get in front of problems before they occur. Just make it a really fantastic experience for them. The hope is that by doing so, when they have a friend, a family member, colleague, etc., that has any sort of real estate need or question, that we are going to be the ones that they are going to contact. And periodically throughout the transaction, we're going to check in and ask if they have come up with any of these names of people who might have a real estate need. And the follow through is that if by the time we get to the closing table and we have not received a referral, we will assume we have dropped the ball and we will ask for feedback at the closing table. So what this does is A, it sets the expectation for the client that we intend to take excellent care of them. And B, it opens the door for everybody involved in the transaction from our side to ask for referrals and introductions to other people without it being weird. So our client care managers, our transaction coordinators, our listing managers, all of these people, and of course us, will now have an easy door in conversation to ask for business and referrals and things like that, because we, as the agents on the front end, have already laid this expectation out. And then this line down here at the bottom is a place for us to sign it. So that way they've got our signature, pen to paper, promising this fantastic experience for them.
So another way that you can deliver this part of your system, right? Setting that expectation. And here it is, you're setting the expectation that you're going to ask them for feedback and for a referral, right? You're also setting the expectation that you're going to deliver the experience that's worth great feedback and a referral, right? So you have to deliver on your part. Here's the piece though, beware when you're asking for feedback that barometer can go both ways, right? And so, so as you're checking in, know that, you're not always going to get positive feedback, right? You might very well actually learn an opportunity for you to be able to grow or develop or to deliver an excellent experience. And so I would challenge you to take that feedback, even if it's direct, even if it's not delivered well, even if somebody's just downright rude about it. See where your fingerprints are in that and what kind of ownership you have over changing that for the next client. And, you know, something that I will oftentimes do is think about all of the clients I've worked with who just didn't have the, you know, the gumption to share that with me, but maybe felt the same way. Right? Like let's say the feedback is that I was too slow to return the communication, right? And yet with this client, it wasn't any different than any of my other clients, and they've never complained, right? So I could take that as, oh, this client just needed a much higher level of feedback than the others. Or I might be really insightful about it and say, okay, maybe my other clients just didn't feel the need to say something about it, but perhaps they would have liked a quicker communication or a higher level of communication too. So as we're going through, making sure that we're really observant about what that is and not taking it personally. Remember, we need to be delivering an experience that's worthy of repeats and referrals, right? So the customer's point of view is the only one that counts. And if you've joined us for this whole series, you know that we started off with the question, what does it mean that the customer is always right? Right? And that's exactly what it means. They're always right because it is their expectations of the experience that count. And their point of view is either that you met, exceeded, or did not meet their expectations, right? And so if we are setting those appropriately from the beginning, then we're able to really deliver on what that is and what that looks like. So check in frequently. There's a system that we're going to share here kind of towards the end of the class that will help you kind of gauge when to check in during the transaction. But it's a good idea to kind of play off of whoever your partner is. And most of us will work with either an admin or a transaction coordinator. And if you use a transaction coordinator, even if you don't have a big team or a lot of leverage, I've got to tell you, this will make checking in throughout the transaction super easy. You can work with your transaction coordinator to pick a few key times during the transaction where you will each check in on one another. Right? And that conversation looks simple. If you're the agent, right, you can call your client, let's say it's after the inspection, and say, hey, I've been working with Rhonda, our transaction coordinator, for a really long time, and I'm always curious to hear how my clients think she's doing, right? What do you think about the speed in which she's communicating with you? Are you happy with the number of emails you're receiving? Is there anything you would change? Right? Have there been any times where she's left you confused or anything like that? Right? Like, what's important to you about that? And then Rhonda, your transaction coordinator, can have the very same phone call, let's say towards the end of the transaction, and get your clients primed for that referral at closing. Right? So Rhonda might ask my clients, hey, how many transactions have you done with Anna before? I've been working with her for quite some time. What do you think is one of the highlights of working with her? Where has she been the most helpful? Right? If Anna were looking to improve the service that she provides, and I know that she is, what might be an area that she's able to work on to exceed your expectations, right? And so it's a really simple conversation, and you can partner with one another. If you're not working with a transaction coordinator, you can check in frequently. Right? And it doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be a specific phone call or communication that says, hey, how am I doing? It can really just be to gauge, hey, we've been working together now for 2 or 3 weeks, and I just wanted to check in. How do you feel about the level of communication? Is it too much? Is it too little? Right? I know in the beginning you said you preferred text message communication. Are we communicating enough via text message? Would you prefer more phone calls? Right? Should we increase our emails? All of those pieces, and just kind of go back to the expectation setting conversation that you had during the buyer consultation or the listing consultation. And then, over the course of the transaction, revisit those pieces, see if you're delivering on that promise, or if something they said they wanted initially has changed, right? Like maybe initially they said, yep, I like text messages. I just don't get into my email very much. And now they're realizing that the text message just isn't sufficient to convey what they would like to hear. And so now they actually want more phone calls, when at the beginning they wouldn't have picked up the phone if you called, and now they're aching for a phone call, right? So are you checking in to see what that looks like, and keeping pulse on the expectations as you go through the transaction? And like I said, ask them for their feedback, right? Typically, you'd have a more formal ask for feedback at or near the close of your transaction, right? So either right before closing, right after closing, or right at closing. Use their feedback then first to help you get better at your business, but also you can use that feedback as a online review or testimonial, right? We know that 86% of consumers read online reviews for local businesses. That's no surprise. You probably do it too, right? 68% of consumers are more likely to buy from a local business with positive online reviews. And personality type comes into this a little bit also, right? So we can never predict what personality types we're going to be working with. For instance, my husband and I honestly don't put a lot of stock in reviews. I'll maybe look at 2 or 3 of them, or I'll look at the overall star rating and extrapolate my own conclusion. My husband, on the other hand, he will pour through as many reviews as he can to create his own opinion of what that product or service is, right? So you never know who you're dealing with on the other end. For 89% of customers, testimonials are considered the most effective content marketing tactic. And I think testimonials are probably the biggest gold mine in your business, because you can use them for so many things, and they're so versatile, and they are real people sharing what their real experience was. And so that goes a really long way. 90% of consumers say that buying decisions are greatly influenced by positive reviews. How many of their buying decisions are influenced by negative or unsatisfactory reviews, right? Keep that in mind as well as you are searching for reviews. And then, that feedback that you're receiving, well, let's hear from some real buyers and sellers about what this means to them. This is a phenomenal series that one of our agents on the East Coast held a few years ago, where they actually invited real buyers and real sellers into kind of a forum where they could share their feedback with real estate professionals. So super insightful feedback that actually comes from buyers and sellers. So let's hear what they have to say here.
So what compels you to write a review? This is what the audience wants to know, because we all are looking for that great review.
I read a review when my selling agent, when I was in Chicago, she was amazing. She was just so on top of everything, and she immediately would call me back. Just any question I had, she knew.
What site did you write the review on for her?
I did it on LinkedIn. She asked me to do it on LinkedIn, and she just went, whatever needed to be done, she went beyond.
So overall, on a scale of 1 to 5, what would you rate your realtor? And what do you think the things they did best were, and where do you think they had the most room for improvement?
I would rate them a 0, because in addition to all the letting the people move in before the closing and having me pay all the utilities, they also did not appear at the closing. And the mortgage person got on the phone with me and said, "This is very uncomfortable, because I'm supposed to be a neutral party here, and nobody from your 2 realtors haven't shown up." So the poor mortgage broker had to negotiate a final financial issue on behalf of me, in addition to being, neutral. So I would give them a 0. And I slammed them on as many social media places as I possibly could, and shared that information with all of my friends and relatives in DC. So I don't know, I've never looked to see what they're doing, but just horrific.
So I love this, because we get to see 2 different sides, right? We get to see that excited, really pleased client who's like, "Oh yeah, I wrote a review. She was phenomenal." And then we get to see the really unexcited, very disappointed client who not only wrote a review, but kind of brazenly put it out there everywhere that she could, right? Because that's what we do. We tend to get more energy in writing those reviews when we feel like we're doing a public a service by warning others of what they might get into, right? Here's some of my key takeaways on that, though. The first client, the one who was pleased with her transaction, did you hear her say that she put the review on LinkedIn because her agent asked her to, right? So are we being that specific with our clients and asking them where to do their surveys? And then, exactly how are we getting those surveys delivered, right? So are we using a tool like goodness, SurveyMonkey obviously is one that comes to mind, but you can use like Google Forms, you can use Google Surveys, right? There's lots of different survey tools that you can use. Here's an example, and I'll see if I can just move it onto the screen, and if you guys are seeing it, let me go back to sharing my screen here. So here's some examples of what those surveys could look like. And so this is something that you could send out either in the mail or through an email or anything like that. But here's one of the pieces that I would warn you. You've got to make it easy, right? If it's not easy, they're just simply not going to do it. So we've definitely got to make it easy for those reviews to happen. And so here's those survey examples. I don't think I hit the share button before. So you've got to make it easy to do those reviews or to write testimonials. And so, and then where do you want them to go, right? In our world, most commonly, we're going to want those reviews or testimonials to go probably to Zillow and realtor.com. We might want a testimonial that shows up on our website. Maybe we have a specific website for that. Maybe we want that to show up on Facebook or on Google or on LinkedIn or another social network that we use predominantly. And so there's a couple of tools, and I'm going to I'll put them over in the chat box so that you can see them too. But there's a couple of great tools that can help automate this and make it easy for you. So they'll kind of reach out on your behalf through written communication, through either email or through email and text message prompt to get reviews, to remind your clients to give you reviews and testimonials. They'll then collect their reviews and testimonials and post them or help them post them on various sites. So one is called Score My Reviews. And so you can use that service to do that. And another one is Testimonial Tree, which I really like. To be able to help kind of leverage some of those review gathering pieces, but be specific if you're asking for a survey or a review or a testimonial. Another great best practice, when possible, especially if you're collecting a testimonial that you'll post on your website or in print marketing or anything like that, you may enlist the help of your assistant or your transaction coordinator to collect that review after closing. Get that, you could get that verbally through a phone call with your client. And then once they've stated that review, right? Oh, Anna was great to work with. Everything was effortless. We ran into some bumps, but she handled everything with ease and communication was top notch, or whatever they have to say. Your TC or your assistant then sends the client a synopsis of what they said, sends them their own words back to them, and asks for their permission to use that as a testimonial, right? So that's one way to hit the easy button, right? Take it out of your client's hands, because then they don't even have to click a link. They're just saying words over the computer or over the phone, and you're sending them an email with the computer that confirms the words that they said. It really can't get much easier than that. However, if we are looking to have them review us on, say, Zillow or realtor.com or on Google or one of those sites, then one of the best things to do is after that phone call, you can put their written testimonial back in that email and include specific links, right? And Mrs. Seller, I'm so pleased you had a fantastic transaction. It was such a pleasure to work with you. Thank you so much for the glowing testimonial. Would you please do me the honor of posting this for the world to see? Simply click on this link. It will take you right to the review and testimonial page. Copy and paste what you said the experience was when you worked with me back in the testimonial portion of this page and then, submit your feedback. And so can you make it super easy like that for your client, right? So those are some best practices around ways to collect those reviews and testimonials. Let me go back here too. Here we go. Track your score. There are several different methods to do this. You can find a few online. If you're using one of those tools like Score My Review or Testimonial Tree, they have a scoring mechanism in there. But really what you're looking at is some sort of net promoter score, right? So if you imagine every single review has a numeric rating that goes from 1 to 10 or from 1 to 100, where did you rank that? Now, it's really easy if they're using a star system, right? If someone gave you 4.9 stars, then then that that's a 96% review, right? Or a 98% review. So that star rating makes it easy, but can you assign a numeric value to it? And then over time, you're going to have the average of that numeric value, and you're going to want to raise that up over time. Of course, working to get closer to 100. Now, this can be incredibly valuable as you're building your real estate team, or if you have a real estate team, right? Because you can have a net promoter score for every member of that team, right? You can be doing the same thing with your transaction coordinator or with other vendors who are helping you throughout the transaction by asking your clients for reviews on them. And then you can gauge whether or not you're going to continue in business with that particular vendor based on their net promoter score, or have some really candid conversations with them about what you're hearing from your clients and what it means to be in business with you, and whether or not those things could be aligned, right? Are they willing to change the way that they service your clients, or is this maybe a blind spot that they didn't know they had in their business that they might be glad to be aware of, right? So determine how you will measure success and measure it. That's the key here. Otherwise, you're collecting testimonials and surveys for marketing's sake, which, while that's still beneficial, it's not going to help you improve the results of those testimonials and surveys, particularly if they're not great. So make sure that you're paying special attention to that. Then make improvements. The key is to make improvements, not just when things go wrong, but when they go right too. If there's a part of the transaction that's going really, really well, or there's something that clients just consistently seem to say you're exceeding their expectations on, what can you learn about what's going well there and add that to other places in the transaction, right? If they thought that your level of communication was awesome when you were currently listed on the market, but they didn't describe your level of communication as awesome when you were under contract waiting for the results of the appraisal, then maybe you have a gap in your world that you need to look at, even if they didn't say they were dissatisfied with it, right? Some big pieces to be able to look at. And then, do you have a system when things go wrong? Because like Mike said in that video we started with, this is real estate and people, right? And so when we're dealing with real estate and with people, something's going to happen, right? There's inevitably something will go wrong. And it's oftentimes how we finish, right? How we recover from that makes the world of difference. So what are we doing? And do you have a system around that, right? Are you responding? And what's your response time, right? If there's an issue or if something's gone wrong. Are you listening to your client? Are you actually seeking to understand where they're at? Asking open-ended questions, coming from curiosity, wanting to learn more about what's important to them about that, right? Validate their feelings. And I love this. Apologies are not enough, right? It takes action. But an apology is the beginning. It's what allows you to get your foot in the door to take the necessary action. So own it, live up to whatever happened, even if at the end of the day you don't feel like you're ultimately responsible for it. Know that they hired you to be ultimately responsible for everything that happens inside of the transaction. So even if it's something that was outside of your control or happened as a result of one of your vendors or partners or even the other side, own it and take responsibility for it, and then commit to a satisfactory solution. Right? This is where you have to go back to the table to reset some expectations and look for a win-win. And sometimes this is as simple as getting clear again about the expectations of working with each other, right? Sometimes all of this comes down to, and oftentimes all of this comes down to communication, right? You'll find that most often the feedback will revolve around communication. And sometimes it's not that you've done anything wrong. You may be doing exactly what the client asked you to do in the beginning, but over the course of the transactions, their needs have changed without them really being aware of that. And so have their expectations. So it just means that the target has moved and you've got to readjust so that you can hit that target, and then be sure to deliver. This is one of those places where 100% you need to under promise and over deliver and deliver soon, right? To resolve that, whatever conflict or whatever you need to make right inside of the transaction. Here's the biggest thing. Like I said, it's usually communication. And sometimes we're not even aware that communication needs have changed or what the perception is on the other side. And sometimes we make assumptions, and it all goes back to communication. In this video, these are real sellers talking about what happened during the sales process. And I think it's really eye-opening. So let's see what they have to say.
What would be something that you would look for that would really strike a chord with you?
For me, my biggest thing was honesty. It was just, and saying, and when you say something, actually do it. You know,
Okay.
That was my biggest thing with my agent.
Show up on time. Don't take calls while you're talking to me. Don't start telling me about all the other things that you're doing, because in my mind, that just is a giant distraction from selling my property.
I would want for them to identify opportunities or inform me and communicate with me on things that they're doing behind the scenes that I don't know they're doing to help. Like, hey, I was talking to another agent the other day who was looking for someone who was interested in townhouses, and I got them to come over to you. Just to know what was happening, what they were doing. Quite often there were times of radio silence. You know, even some people would come and look at the house and, you know, and then I wouldn't get the feedback. And sometimes they don't provide it, I understand. But, you know, a week here and there would go by with nothing from, you know, my agent.
What I want is a very proactive realtor. I want to hear from you every week. I want to know what you're doing. I don't want to have to call you. And my whole life is relying on other people's expertise. I find the best plumber, the best electrician, and let them do their jobs. I don't micromanage them, and I don't want to micromanage a realtor. I don't know your business. You know your business. Yeah. So I want a program, I want marketing. If it's not working, I expect you to vary it. And I expect to hear from you every week. Even if nothing is happening, call me and let me know that you are aware that I'm still alive.
How do we show them they're our highest priorities? Lots of nuggets in this one. What did you guys hear?
It struck me that I think it was the I can't remember which one it said. They don't want to hear about your other deals, your other things going on. They want to feel like they're the center of this particular conversation, at least. And don't take calls when you're on the talking with them. Like, oh, that sounds like such a no-brainer.
Well, and so, we talked about this last week when we were talking about setting and delivering those expectations, right? You're either in one camp or the other, and set the expectations for your clients, right? Particularly when it comes to communication, like Mr. and Mrs. Seller, our time together is so important, and I want to listen so intently that I won't be taking any calls while we're together face to face, right? I want to know that. So it also means that when I'm working with another client, I won't be taking calls, just like I'm not taking calls with you. So it may sometimes take me until after that meeting to get back to you. Leave me a message, know that I'll respond to all of my voicemails really promptly, but I might be face to face with another client, right? Or you have the other conversation with them, which is Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. It's so important to me that you find your right home. And sometimes things happen so swiftly in this market. So I want you to know that I will always take your call. I may not be able to talk for long, but every time you call, if I am able to, I will answer. And now, because things happen swiftly in this market, if I'm with you and another client calls and I have it, then I may step away from you for a moment to take their call, but know that I would be doing the same to them if they called with you, right? So just what is your standard, and communicate that ahead of time so they know what to expect. Right. And there's a way to deliver both of those messages, but 100%. And I just personally, I want to give you my full attention. So I won't take a call while I'm with you. And that means that I may have to return your call at another time if I'm with another client, right? I'm in that camp, but you can be in whatever camp you end up in. And our ego sometimes shows up. And we are proud of the fact that we've got so many things going on. I'm so busy right now. I'm swamped. Real estate is excellent, right? And it's keeping me on my toes. And I've got these 3 listings and I'm working with 5 buyers right now. And oh man, my Saturdays are booked. Cool. While your ego might be feeling really awesome about how busy you are and you're a successful real estate agent, what is your client thinking, right? She was thinking, you don't have any time for me. I'm not as important. Those are all distractions from you selling my house. Those are big. What else did we hear?
So I think it's also important to remember that these conversations are not about you. They're really about them. And you're there to help them. So, talking about yourself and all the, successes that you're having, I think that's a better conversation to have with your BFF, right? Than with a prospective client.
Yeah, I love that, Amy. Some real perspective on that. And, then we heard the guy say, gosh, sometimes there wasn't anything to report. So it was just radio silence. Right. And I want to reassure you that no news does not equal good news. No news equals sleepless nights for your clients, because that gives them time for their imagination to tell them why you're not calling, right? What's going on? What's going wrong that they don't want to tell me about, right? So definitely set that expectation and deliver it, that you're calling to check in, every week or twice a week or whatever it is, whatever that cadence is that you set up with your clients, even if nothing's happening. And that's a simple call, right? Hey, Rob, I know that your loan's going through underwriting right now. All of your inspections are finished with the house. We're just waiting to hear back from the underwriter. I just wanted to call and check in and let you know that I don't know anything new. Nothing's changed. Everything's still good to go forward. We're simply waiting to hear from the underwriter. Do you have any questions I can help you with right now? Right? That simple 2-second phone call will alleviate a lot of those sleepless nights and help ensure that you're getting that 5-star review. Right? Those check-ins, those touch bases go a really long way. And what do you have built into your system to do that? Right? Are you using a tool like the opportunities in command? Do you have checklists built out to remind you to make these calls at different points during the transaction, right? Do you have a reminder in your calendar? I know so many of us use CTM, right? And we take the dates and deadlines from CTM and we pop them right into our Google Calendar or iCal or whatever we use. Do you also have reminders to call your clients in your calendar, right? Have you built that into your system? And when are good times to do that? And so this I want to share with you. Let me see. I don't know if it's in a slide here. Oh, going right back to the video. There we go. It is not in the slide. Let's go to this one. There we go. And I'll send this packet out to you guys too, so that you have some of these resources with the recording here. But there are some great kind of proven systems that will help you and your transaction coordinator or assistant or teammate or whoever you're working with in keeping that communication. The first is called pass the baton. And this is phenomenal when you're working with anyone else on your team. We've always used this or something like this as like a cover page of our file, whether it's in their file electronically or, you know, if it was on their paper file, right? We always had something like this and it had all of the keys that I need to know about this transaction. So this is an example of a listing, right? And you'll see that there's some things in here that, you know, they might not be using anymore, like a 1-800-HOME info hotline, right? So this is kind of an older checklist, and you get the idea of it, right? So what's their motivation for moving, right? What makes them happy about it? What makes them sad? When are they going to go on the market? How much do they owe? What's the HOA? What are we going to sell the property for? Right? Are they going to have to buy a home? They need a sign in the yard. Are we going to order photos? Right? All of those things. So all of that information is just on this one sheet. Particularly important when you're communicating all of those issues to somebody else, right? A lot of times we might call our TC, right? Our transaction coordinator, and say, hey, I've got a listing going on the market. So-and-so, I'm going to be getting it prepped in the MLS, but I need you to work on some of these things, right? Are you going through this either verbally or in writing with your TC and passing the baton, sharing all of that information? Or are they going to have to call you 7 times in the next 3 days to ask things like, hey, what's the lockbox code? Did you talk to the clients about showing instructions? Is there 1 HOA or 2? Do you know the water company? Right? What does that look like? Or are you prepared ahead of time? Or if you're working with a great TC, do they have this form and are they asking you all of those questions right up front? Right? If you're not and you'd like an introduction to some great TCs that do that, let me know, because I know a few who are that well prepared that they won't let you off the phone until they've got a complete pass the baton. This says the assistant's first call checklist. If you don't have an assistant or if your TC is not making this call, then you could edit this to be your pre-listing checklist, right? If this is for a listing. And so here's things that I need to cover with my clients, right? The cadence of our communication. How do they want to handle showings? And then how will they learn about showings and feedback, right? Are they going to use the app? Are they going to get emails? What is the website going to look like? Here's the sign info. Here's when it's going to be installed. Here's what you can expect. Are you letting them know that you're going to share the MLS printout with them, that you're going to ask them maybe to proofread it or to see it before it goes live? What are your business hours, right? Are you using something to collect data and like a call number on the house or a text capture piece, right? What happens if they have missing paperwork? Who will reach out to them? Who's going to talk to them about paperwork to begin with? Is it you or your TC, right? Are you asking them for a referral? Are you using the promise script that we saw at the beginning? And if you want more information on that promise script, you can go into KW Connect and you can search the promise or Mike Hicks promise. You can also find lots of info on YouTube also, the promise script or Mike Hicks promise script, because that's really all about what he's put together. So and have you asked for that referral, right? Do you have their best contact information? And the Disney close, right? We're going to do such an excellent job at anticipating your needs, right? And then are you going to, are you setting them up with all of the information that they need when you're listing at home? Or are you calling them back as you're putting it in the MLS? Oh man, what's your HOA again? Do you have one or two? Right? What's your water company? Right? Has the sign showed up yet? I think it's going to be there today, either today or sometime next week. Right? What does that look like, and how are you setting the stage for your clients? Right? So these are some great tools. And then here's one, the 3-week honeymoon of communication. This is designed for you and your assistant to tag team. Could be you and your transaction coordinator. Could also be just you, right? And so how are you tweaking this? And this is specific to them putting their property on the market. But here's the deal. This could be for buyers as well. In fact, this would work really well for buyers right now, especially in our low inventory situation, because you'll likely be showing a buyer home for much longer than you would have a listing on the market right now. Right? So you might be showing a buyer homes for 2 weekends, 6 weekends, you might be a few months until you're under contract. So how are you taking advantage of that? But what's happening week 1, week 2, week 3? And honestly, these are just examples of things that could go on the list. Have you built your own list? And do you have some ideas of what that looks like? Something that I always think of, especially every year when the contract review committee, the contract and forms committee with the Division of Real Estate gives us new real estate forms. That ended up there because it was a problem, right? That ended up as an item on the NASA checklist because this one time somebody didn't look at it, right? And so now it's on the checklist so it doesn't get missed. Pilots have a pre-flight checklist, right? And it's on that checklist because, this one time somebody didn't look at it and it got missed and it caused a problem, right? So this is another one of those opportunities for you to dive back into your past, transactions and really look at, what did communication look like? What did I miss there? What was really effective? What went wrong that I could have solved with communication? And let's write a system around that, right? How often and for what reasons should I be communicating with my clients? And then set the expectation that you're going to follow up throughout the process. And at the end, you're going to ask them for their review or testimonial, right? And then use one of those tools or systems to, or best practices to easily collect their reviews and testimonials, so that you have them for your own self-improvement, but also to be able to appropriately market yourself. You guys are a quiet group. It's late on a Thursday afternoon. Thanks for sticking with me. Any questions you can throw in the chat box. I'm also going to put the link to this supplement here in the chat. So you can copy that. You should be able to have access to it right away, so that you have those checklists and the survey examples, and you can start building those out in your business. Definitely check out Score My Reviews and Testimonial Tree. There are some really, really great resources for you to be able to collect customer surveys and testimonials. And so, yeah, let's open it up for any questions or comments. Lynn, it's always so good to see your face, sweetie. Thanks for turning on your camera so I could wave and say hi.
I'm sorry I missed the first half. I was on a call I couldn't get off of, so.
No worries. We are recorded. I'll make sure you get the recording.
Oh, thank you. Yay.
Absolutely, friends. Absolutely.
I don't have any questions though. Always good. I always learn so much to learn.
So much to learn and so much to do. So if you can do just one thing from this class, I would say it's to implement that promise script or something like it in your business. If you did nothing else, I think that will pay off in spades because you're setting the expectation that you're either going to do a good job and get a referral, or you're not going to give me a referral and we're going to have a conversation about how I didn't do a good job. Right.
Yeah.
So that's going to be in the first part. So make sure that you watch that with the recording, Lynn.
Okay, I will. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, guys. Have a great afternoon. It was good to see you all.
Thanks, Anna. Bye.
Bye.
Appreciate it.